Homer Simpson has famously said that maybe life is just a bunch of stuff that happens. And that couldn't be more true. Life is just a bunch of stuff that happens. But what is happens? Happens is something that is recitable in a story. And a story is a neural configuration in the mind of a person that is relayed through sound waves from one person to another. But for that neural configuration to come into existence, you need neurons. And for neurons to come into existence in a way that they can relay stories, they have to be able to perceive stories. For that, signals from the environment like sound, touch, and light have to come onto receptors, become neurally transmitted information that has to be embedded in a certain pattern in a neural network that holds the story before it's told to someone else. Now, what we are talking about is stories, because only stories are recitable, and they're only recitable between humans. Now, except for the handful of bonobos and gorillas that speak human sign language, stories are between people talking to people. And stories are stored in human brains. The overall collection of all stories is called knowledge. And so we have a process in which signals from the universe, whether they manifest themselves in energy or in matter, they have an effect through our sensory systems, which make their way as signals to our brain, which our brain turns into patterns, which it then very often forces into a story, which we then relay to each other. And if these stories are supported by evidence, then they're called science, and if they're not, they're called superstition or religion. So that's kind of what we want to talk about, and especially in the context of drugs. Drugs are to information coming to the brain what the equalizer is to audio coming into an audio system. Drugs are the set of levers and filters that are going to slightly tweak, downplay, upregulate, downsize, smooth out, accentuate, etc., the different parts of reality that are streaming into us from our touch sensors, our ears, our eyes, our mouth, our memories. All of these are constantly creating a narrative that we construct. We tell it to ourselves, we tell it to others, and we file it in that history of our own lives, which helps us to define who we are. And then, in very much the same way as Hollywood accentuates the blues and the oranges in every film so that things become more vivid, so we can, with compounds, do a post-production of our own life's narrative. And we want to try and do that in the best possible way. And I guess what we're going to be talking about is how we can do it, how we can work towards doing it in a good way, what are the challenges, hurdles, what are the stepping stones, what we know, what we don't know, and what we know that we have to overcome. So, let's start. Let's put ourselves in context, okay? We live in the universe. The universe is made up of galaxies. Galaxies are made up of stars, each with its own solar system, and we have our solar system called the Sol solar system, and we live on the third rock from the sun in a very narrow portion of the crust that is something we call the biosphere. Okay, so that's the little tiny slice of the universe in which we live in. It doesn't bother us to address the entire universe in all of its entirety, and it's really attribute to Horton Hears a Who the way we, living on this tiny, tiny layer of frost of a little rock circling a yellow star, are sitting here and pondering the entire cosmos. But in the very same way as the people of Whoville talked to Horton the elephant from on their speck, we are doing the same, or attempting to do the same, with the cosmos. So life is evolving on planet Earth. And according to Richard Dawkins, you have an original replicator, which makes copies of itself and has to use resources from the environment, building blocks, in order to make copies of itself. And evolution comes into play when some mistakes are made. Now, mistakes, sometimes they break things, but sometimes they make things better. The ones that make things better outcompete those that didn't make the fortuitous mistake. And that is evolution in action. So when you have a self-replicating system and it makes copies and copies of itself, but there are sometimes mistakes are made, and those rare mistakes happen to be a happy mistake, then evolution happens. The thing is that there is no one direction that is the right direction.